it's important that the next generation have all the fundamental things that are very important, and that's self-esteem, self-awareness, self-confidence. And one of the ways to do that is to let them know that, listen, a lot of us come from different backgrounds, and wherever you are, that's where you're supposed to be, and you are loved right there, which is what the name of my book is. It's I Am Loved Right Where I Am. And I think, being raised in a, I mean, I was raised with a mom and dad for the most part. But regardless, I mean, that had its trials and struggles, because no home life is perfect, number one. But regardless, I wanted everyone, that no matter where you came from, I don't care if your older sister is raising you, that's where you're supposed to be, and you are loved. And I just wanted to convey that message to every child.
Do you find sometimes that because you deal with trauma, especially betrayal trauma, do you find sometimes that the trauma that children go through sometimes gets swept under the rug and it's not addressed early enough and they carried it forward into their adulthood?
Well, that's a pretty loaded question. It's a very good question. Thank you. But it's a pretty loaded question, because here's the thing. Number one, sometimes there's generational trauma. So people don't even recognize trauma as trauma. There's an old saying, if you come from a toxic family, make sure a toxic family doesn't come from you. The problem is that we know what we know. And so if we're raised with spanking and yelling and screaming and whatever, that's normal to us. So, a child can be traumatized, and certainly it's not even realized. And then and the other thing too is, I always say trauma is nothing that we ever get over. You can't get over trauma. It's like anything else, from ADHD or OCD or whatever the case is. You learn how to best manage it. But most certainly, a lot of trauma is swept under the carpet, even in terms of culture. There's a lot of cultures that, aren't pro therapy, aren't pro introspection, aren't pro self reflection. So there's a lot of things, and trauma will come out in areas of your life. It absolutely will, whether it's addictions, whether it's anger issues, even up until physical issues.
And I'm glad you touched on that because I grew up in a household very early on as a child. Spanking and that type of discipline was acceptable. I don't want to say it was normal because my parents, I guess they in their mind they felt that it was inappropriate. But because, as you mentioned, it came down from their parents, their parents' parents, so on and so forth, but he began to see the shift with myself and my siblings as well. And I made it a point in my life to look at the things that I didn't like as a child. Didn't look at the things that I didn't like as a young adult. Look at the things I didn't like as a full-fledged adult. And said, I want to change this. I need to make sure, as you put it, even though I may have come from a family that could be viewed as toxic, I want to make sure that a toxic family is not born from me. Um, when you mention your childhood and you mentioned you've been married all these years, you mentioned you have two beautiful children. Was there a point in your life where you had that same type of conversation with yourself or that same type of vow that you wanted to make sure that the childhood you provided for your children was different than the ones that your adopted children, sorry, that was different from the childhood that you grew up with?
Yeah, I think that's an ongoing conversation. Just like everything else should be. It's really an ongoing conversation and an ongoing struggle. I mean, when you are born and raised, that is your blueprint. That is your foundation. To go against that's a lot of work. So it's a struggle. And I can't say that I haven't fallen short. I mean, there's many times I've lost it on my kid. No, I've never lashed out and beat them, but certainly it is a struggle. Just like everything else, like even marriage. Marriage is a constant conversation. It's one of the things, and I can go on forever, but one of the things, especially in marriage nowadays, is we live in a microwave society. You want a hamburger, you go through a drive-through. Within minutes, you can have a hamburger. You want to cheat on your spouse, download an app, and within minutes, you can meet somebody secretly and, wherever. We live in a microwave society. If we are not constantly communicating our needs, our spouse's needs, not to mention, I also say, we're not human beings. We're human evolvements. We're constantly evolving. You're a different person today than you were 5 years ago. You're going to be a different person 5 years from now than you are today. You are constantly evolving. You're growing. You're learning. So you have to get to know, the new you all the time. And if you're with somebody, you have to constantly build bridges to that new person to get to know you and to get to know the new person that you're with, because they're evolving as well. So it's an ongoing conversation. Everything in life is.